Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me, Trainman, and I am a little bit stuffy, so sorry for the quality of today's video. Anyways, this is the Zombie Train, episode 184. Yes, we skipped one. Don't complain, I understand. What happened is, episode 183 is a route review, and I'm going to follow the tradition of keeping route reviews on, episodes ending with the number 3, but I don't have a route to review. So I'm going to wait until someone gives me a route to review, and then we're going to make episode 183 on that Thursday. As a matter of fact, though, I couldn't really pass up today as a work day, simply for the fact that there's a lot that has to be done for the Iron Horseman Chronicles, and this is a very, very good way to do it. This is the only way I do it. I just work for these 2 hours every Thursday, and that's how this route has slowly been made. Other than with help from the likes of TBA and Jador and Kevon and Wybold and Milky and TJ and I'm not sure if there's anybody else. Anyways, you get my point. So this route needs work. One thing you may notice is my grid turned blue, and I don't know why it turned blue, but now it's blue and I don't really like it because you can see the yellow a hell of a lot better. But I guess I can't complain. I have a working trains, which a lot of people can't do for whatever reason. So, anyways, today we're working on a place called the Elton Britt Quarry, and some of you may know what that's referring to, but understand that this quarry was actually just used by the Iron Horseman Railroad when they were originally building their main line, in the construction of the many stone bridges and viaducts that are littered throughout the line, and really there are only a handful, but some of them are quite sizable. And today, for the Zombie Train topic, we're talking about specific questions on the Michigan infrastructure. This is by Mr. Railroad Runner, and I already have opened the episode on which this question occurred. It was the one regarding Michigan. So, 2 questions about the Michigan infrastructure, he writes. Firstly, Detroit does have a rail tunnel to Canada. Was this used at all? Secondly, was anything done with the Sioux locks near Sault Ste. Marie? Those locks also have a bridge running from Canada to Michigan. Now, something is worth mentioning about Detroit. Detroit, as a city, doesn't have a lot going for it. And this is of course known in our modern times, blah, blah, blah. Plenty of jokes on Detroit. But it's worth pointing out that we use Detroit as sort of a dumping ground for the many zombies that were sieging Toronto, way back when we broke the siege of the Toronto rail lines. This, if anything, should point to the notion that we really didn't want anything to do with Detroit. It was a very major metropolitan area that didn't have a lot that we needed, and didn't really have much going for it to begin with. There wasn't a lot of reason for us to head out there and expend our resources attempting to take the city. Now, when I did not permit us to travel through the rail tunnel, for reasons of smoke. Later we would do some much more audacious things. 3254 does have an all-weather cab, so it made things easier than they would have been had we not had one. Wybold had some trouble with the, the tunnel over Moffat Pass. But we again had no such trouble. We could do pretty well in tunnels. I just tried to avoid them. When we came down there, we used a line that is on the Canada side, or the Canadian side of the river to turn the train. Where is the connection between this and that? What is this? I remember we were on this spur right here. Yeah, we had to do some fancy maneuvering to get onto it. It wasn't the easiest thing in the world because there's a interchange where one line goes over the other. Actually, no, that's a level interchange. Oh, so we didn't need to do that. We did a lot of stupid maneuvering down in Detroit. What is this town over here? Windsor. Down in Windsor, anyways, when we needed to sort of... A, we were killing time, and B, we were waiting... we were trying to attract the zombies as best we could. We'd drawn them away from Toronto. And that is a long, long way to go. But we wanted to take them a long, long way away, so that they wouldn't be a problem for a while, and they weren't a problem for a while. And we were able to slowly draw them back, with all sorts of supplies that we'd gathered in Detroit. or rather in Windsor. Again, we stayed on our side of the river. And we did a little bit of clearing, but not a lot of clearing. We sort of defended ourselves. The Windsor side of the river isn't nearly as built up. It is fairly populous, but it isn't nearly as built up as Detroit, which makes sort of looking out for Zacks and stuff like that a hell of a lot easier. Tunnels in general, especially in populated areas, are things to avoid. Especially places with subway systems and the like. I'm sure quite a few people here have heard of the game Metro 2033, which takes place in a post-apocalyptic nuclear, I believe it's Moscow, and is... Ooh, excuse me. And is... centered in the subways, and that's why it's Metro 2033. Now... Ooh, excuse me. Can't swallow for whatever reason. Now, that seems very interesting and very, cool, whatever. And you could see in some places with subways or large underground structures, they would start to develop some sort of society, but they needed to have easy access to above ground, which was also sealable, and they needed to have all of their entrances blocked up. They also needed to be pretty hefty when they went down there in the first place. I can't actually think off the top of my head of one that was particularly, alive. Most of these places, they would run out of supplies and they'd peter out and they'd get busted in because the zombies are going to know where you are. Tunnels carry noise like nothing else. And the zombies will come for you. In addition to the fact that tunnels are dark, that already puts a human, it makes a human uneasy and jumpy, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but when you're fighting zombies, you want to have your wits about you. Now, in other words, this just spelled doom for anyone who was going through a subway system without being very, very, very prepared. Now, what was the other one? Sault Ste. Marie. That's up here, isn't it? Where is it? Oh, it's right there. Okay. Okay, so that is in the other part of Michigan. I don't know what to call the two different parts, but it's in the upper part of Michigan. It's separating, once again, the United States from Canada. I believe I mentioned Sault Ste. Marie in my last thing about Michigan. We didn't go up there. As a matter of fact, I don't think I ever entered that part of Michigan. When we were going out west, we sort of blasted straight through Wisconsin, and Minnesota, and North Dakota, and Montana, and blah, 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 blah. We were out of there when we were taking the path. Now, as time went on, of course, I didn't have a lot of care as to what thing, I would hear from time to time about what people were doing. There is a fairly significant, what is this, a steel mill, right? Iron ore piles at the dock, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, this looks like a steel mill. It's definitely a steel mill. Yeah, it's SR Steel. Now, so while I personally did not go up there, but yeah, SR Steel definitely rings a bell. It was one of the places that we had up producing steel fairly quickly after the Zombie Train incorporated. Taking Sault Ste. Marie was not an easy task. And, I mean, the city is not that large, but it was one of the first places that we said, oh, look at this, there's a steel mill right here that we can very easily snag if we can take the city. Oh god, what is that? Shut up. If we can take the city, and we did, I mentioned about the Mackinac Island thing, St. Ignace, that group of individuals who was particularly problematic for us, but they had moved through Sault Ste. Marie a long, long time before we had ever got there. And again, this was one of the few things. It was one of the first things, as a matter of fact, that I didn't really have a hand in. I wasn't the one who identified the steel plant. I wasn't the one who led the charge. I sort of provided some background logistics for Sault Ste. Marie. And which means the engine going across was likely our northern engine, and northern being a location, not a type, at that point in time being 765. So that, in addition to whatever ships we could wrangle up, I do remember there being a seaborne, or well, rather a lakeborne presence in that one, because I remember sort of dealing with the logistics behind that. And at the time, what I was doing, I was actually in Toronto for this, and it's a long way by ship through the lakes and up to Sault Ste. Marie, but this isn't where we were, gathering the ships necessarily, but it's where we were working at the time, because it's in Canada. It is, they had at the time a provisional government. They didn't have a lot of one, but they had a provisional government that was trying to do its best to sort of keep things sane. And also, that is not what I'm looking for. And also, we were sort of looking over the locomotives in Toronto to say, okay, well, what are we going to take? What are we going to restore? What are we going to do? Because, again, we were very, very friendly with the city. We had the inherent problem of, okay, the roundhouse is here, and the tracks are there, and it's not easy to get from one to the other. So, again, we were trying to organize some logistical things with the mayor of Toronto at the time, and, again, this is not the person that we're familiar with. I don't remember his name. But this is not the person that we're familiar with in our current timeline. I'm fairly certain he... what happened to him? Again, I didn't do the whole story. I didn't catch the whole story when I was there. It didn't much matter to me. I was just trying to save them from the Zacks. And that, that worked out, but... I didn't know or care for the rundown of what went on there. It was, okay, you're in charge? Yeah, good. You're in charge. We'll deal with you. Let's set some walls up. Let's try and keep the zombies out. We led them away. Let's worry about keeping them out from now on. And yeah, we were operating out of the roundhouse there. And we were trying to reconfigure the roundhouse. We had the roundhouse, and we had the stadium, which we were sort of pooling people in. And it was sort of a checkpoint, almost, for people coming into Toronto. Because it was a really big area that we could just sort of convert on a whim. Now, if I do remember one thing from the taking of Sault Ste. Marie, it was not without casualties. I think we lost maybe 15 people. But the locks had proved to be a problem because there are these two pretty hefty lift bridges there. And I'm going to make this quick, I've only got a minute left. But we had a ship that... which side is the lower side? The lower side is the east side. We had a ship that was getting drawn by the current because there was a problem with the gates, and I think one of the sets of gates was breached by a ship. And there was a fairly good-sized ship that was being actually slowly drawn by the current. We didn't really catch on to it, but one of our ships had to go out there and line onto it before it slowly drifted into the bridge, into the lift bridges there, and we couldn't really get the bridges out of the way because we didn't have the power to do that. It's very easy to lower a lift bridge without power. Not so easy to raise a lift bridge without power. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and VideoPad actually crashed, so I probably went over time here, and I guess I'll just go then. Trainman out. Looks like I killed this early. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll round up some information, and in a future episode I'll detail the entire battle of Sault Ste. Marie. How's that sound?